Okay, I decided today to do a video that doesn't require very much, oh, what's the word? As good video quality as my Minecraft video, so I'm just doing this. Today I'm gonna find out with my brain which states have the worst weather. I'm not gonna be looking at any statistics, just gonna be thinking about with what is knowledge. Yes, so we're gonna start now. We're gonna start with some of the states that seem to get lots of storms. And the states we know that get a lot of storms is the area of the United States known as Tornado Alley, which includes Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. We're not gonna say Nebraska because we're gonna say Nebraska. Nebraska, Iowa, and Missouri. So those are the areas known for their frequent tornadoes. All of these states have had some record-setting tornadoes, like Tri-State tornado, which moved through Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. The Joplin tornado right here in Missouri. And even the El Reno tornado, the fastest wind speed tornado in history, was in Oklahoma, just actually a few miles outside of Oklahoma City. So that is Tornado Alley. They're known for their tornadoes, but there are some other places that have some bad weather too. The next one, I'm going to keep going on about tornadoes. We're going to add a few more states with frequent tornadoes compared to a lot of other states in America. Arkansas, I believe that Jonesboro, Arkansas has had two, this is 2020, I believe Jonesboro, Arkansas has had 2 tornadoes this year, so not been good for them. So definitely Arkansas. Louisiana is in that region. Mississippi Mississippi and Oklahoma are 2 of the states that get the most EF5 tornadoes on average per year. Alabama, those states get a lot of tornadoes every year. So this area in orange is states that get a lot of tornadoes. But next we're going to move on to floods. Now, there is one state in particular that sees floods every year. It is California. It has their monsoon season, I believe, during winter, and they get the snowstorms up here in the Sierra Nevada mountains. So, yeah, California might show up on our list. But now we're going to move on to some states that often get large hail. So the hail will be in our green color. So that is our yellow color. That is Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. But that's not telling the full story. So it's mostly, I would say, South Dakota also gets a pretty decent amount of hail because it's in that region. But since it's these 3 states, the areas of America that get the most hail, I would say, are parts of eastern Colorado, eastern Wyoming, and western Nebraska, and maybe even portions of western Kansas and southwestern South Dakota. But these 3 states, statistically, not going to be looking at stats, I'm just going off of things I've heard before. These 3 states, statistically, have the most hailstones, or large hail, or severe hail, every year. But now we're going to go on to something else. States that are prone to hurricanes. So we have Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas. We're gonna actually also add North Carolina because this area out here, it kind of sticks out into the ocean. Right now, this area is under a tropical storm warning for Tropical Storm Arthur. It's headed this way. So, I know you can't see the blue very well. Might want to change that color. Purple. I'm not going to add South Carolina or Georgia, only because Georgia's largest recorded hurricane that the eye hit Georgia, it didn't even make landfall in Georgia. It was Hurricane Michael. It hit the panhandle of Florida and cut through Georgia. But I wouldn't really count Georgia on that list, but North Carolina, because Florence, Dorian, yeah, those are two notable hurricanes that hit North Carolina just in the past 2 years. So those are the hurricane-prone states. So now we're going to look at the wildfire-prone states. We don't have exactly the longest list of that, but I would have to say, I'm going to add a few more states to that flood risk, or flooded states, because of just how often they actually get flooded. I've seen it happen before. I'm going to have to add Oklahoma and Arkansas. I've heard of them getting flooded. Louisiana, just from hurricanes. So look at that. Louisiana, 3 types of weather that are often dangerous. I'm also going to add Mississippi, because the Mississippi River flows through those states near its delta, and it causes a lot of problems there. So, but next we're going to move on to heat. Now, this is mostly affecting, for California, we're going to put Southern California. We're just going to say Southern California. Northern California, I mean, if you're in this middle Northern California, you can get some pretty intense heat sometimes in the midsummer. And even sometimes in May, like right now. It's May. So then, southern Texas, especially southwestern Texas, can get that heat sometimes. But I'd like to point out, Texas probably won't win this, because Texas is like, the northern part gets most of the tornadoes, southeastern gets most of the hurricanes, and southwestern gets most of the dangerous heat. So I'm going to put Arizona on this list, and Nevada. So, you see, we're seeing the same states pop up here a lot. But we're still not done. For coldness, I'm going to try and use blue. I'm going to say North Dakota. You know what? I'm just going to use... how many colors do I have? I'm sure we can use purple again. I can distinguish between these non-cold hurricane-prone states and these far inland cold states. So I'm going to say Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Now, I'm not including New York, Maine, but they may be included later on in this list. So we're really not seeing a whole lot of states in the north take any 2 double spots, but floods. Definitely Washington and Oregon. I couldn't forget those. That would be crazy. So, see, we got the common cold is common across those areas. Now we're going to be talking about the blizzards. We're going to do that in purple again. So, California, I'm going to add it, but that's mostly the mountains. The rest of California gets very rare blizzards. I'm going to put North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, definitely, New York, definitely, and even I'm going to put Maine. So, now that we go into very cold events, we're seeing some states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, and South Dakota have a lot of events caused by cold. One state we definitely couldn't forget for snowiness. Oh wait, Colorado. That would be embarrassing. And even Kansas. Kansas, they can get a lot of snow. But the one state we haven't mentioned yet is Alaska. I'm going to put them up for cold. I wouldn't say southern Alaska would be horrible, like Anchorage isn't. I have heard that their winters aren't the worst. They're bad, but then they're going for cold as well. So, but what are the most dangerous events? Hurricanes, they cover a large amount of area. They're very dangerous. But they're not as destructive as tornadoes, but tornadoes only cover a smaller area. And floods often happen, and flash floods, they can happen anywhere. Aerial flooding can happen anywhere. But one of the most common types of flooding is river flooding, which only happens near rivers. But wildfires, if there's a chance of wildfires, they will spread quickly. So California, Nevada, Arizona, I'm going to add an orange wildfire risk. So, California and Arizona get that. New Mexico. So, see, California, those three risks, flooding is going to be very dangerous in the monsoon season, especially with the burn scars, with the burnt ground, that can cause mudslides. Just a few years back, it was 2018, there was a town in California that was completely buried by a mudslide. So, that's very dangerous. And then they get the impressive heat in the south. I'd say one of the worst places for weather is probably California. But which states get the most of these bad weather events? Okay. So this is going to be, we're going to think about which events are the worst events and which states get the most of these events. The type of weather. This is not because it's a destructive type of weather all the time, every time it happens, but it is very dangerous and it's amazingly common even in all states, surprisingly. It's more common in some places than others, but even anywhere in the United States, it's happened before, except maybe Alaska. And even in Alaska, it's gotten up to 100 degrees before, so we're talking about heat. That kills more Americans per year than any other type of weather. It is much more common than the hurricanes and tornadoes. So we're going to put an X on all the states that might. So if we have a state that doesn't get very much of a certain type of weather, we're going to put an X on them. So that's Alaska. And surprisingly, I'm going to put an X on Hawaii because their highest temperature ever recorded. This might have been as of a few years ago, but it couldn't have gotten that much hotter. They've only hit 100 degrees. Their record is the same as Alaska's because they stay the same pretty much year-round. And I'd have to say Maine is off the list. We're also factoring in humidity too, but North Dakota, Minnesota, and Montana, and Idaho, and Wisconsin are off of that list. I'm not putting Michigan. One time I went to a vacation on Michigan. It was 102 degrees. I know that's not common. I go there every summer and it usually is not that hot. But so in that case, I'm just going to erase the cross off on Wisconsin. So, next, tornadoes. There are a lot of states that are going to be crossed off from this. All of New England. Tornadoes are one of those damaging ones. I'm going to keep Pennsylvania on there and New York and even Massachusetts. But Connecticut, Rhode Island, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, California, parts of Wyoming get it, but these states don't. I'm going to say that's good for now. I'm not going to cross off Delaware. Because even though you don't hear about or tornadoes or anything in Delaware, but since tornadoes are so common, but with that heat, so here's how our system is going to work. These states that get the most tornadoes get a point. Now, Arizona is down to 0 points, so is California and New Mexico, because they all were in the heat section, so they would have gotten a point, but we canceled that out. So, now, we're going to go to the cold. States where cold is common. Now, Montana doesn't have their X anymore. Neither do any of these states. Wisconsin gets a point. Maine no longer has an X on it. Alaska is back in the game. But next, we're going to do snow. So, New York gets a point. Michigan gets a point. Wisconsin has 2 points now. Iowa, Nebraska has 2. Kansas has 2. 1 for Colorado. 1 for California. 1 for North and South Dakota. Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho. Oh, wait, no. They don't have a point because they were canceled out. Now, the states that don't get much snow, I'm going to give Maine a point. The states that don't get much snow, okay, all of New England, you get points. Here you go, Massachusetts. Okay. So, I'd say the states that don't get a lot of snow, Florida, yeah, obviously, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. Kentucky's not that far south. Alabama. They have. So these states are all getting erased from the list. And these two are off. Alaska gets a point. So, as you can see, California gets another point. So, another point for Iowa, another point for Montana. So, next we're going to move on to flooding. A 3rd point for California. We're not going to X anybody off because it's not like super uncommon really anywhere. So, a 3rd point for California. These 2 states get their X's put off. And that's it. I'm not going to put anything else on any other states. Now, hurricanes. Point for Texas. Point for Louisiana. Point for Mississippi and Alabama. And Florida's back on the list. So the only states that don't have anything are Maryland, Delaware, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts, West Virginia, Indiana, and Minnesota, and Illinois. Next, we're going to go on to fire danger. So Arizona's back in, so is New Mexico. California has 4 points. Now we're going to go, okay. Next we're going to do hail. Next we're going to do wind. Now, some places are windier than others in some states, but I've seen a lot of times when Montana got real windy. thought of Montana's weather as always being good. California with their wildfires, they get windy. Like, it could get windy all across the Midwest. Okay, so, because it's the Midwest, and yes, they do that. 1 for Oklahoma. 2, 1, 1, 1. Not off. Actually, no, Tennessee's not gonna get off the list for that. And New York gets wind. Pennsylvania gets wind. That's all I'm gonna do. But, like, now almost every state, except for, like, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, a few of New England, have some pretty bad or good weather. Now, I'm gonna go to our final category, which is hail. Now, hail. So, that's a second one for Colorado, a fourth one for Nebraska, a third one for South Dakota, a fourth one for Kansas, and a second one for Colorado. So, here are the worst states for weather. First place, California. Second place, Nebraska and Kansas. Third place, Montana, South Dakota, Wisconsin. Now, this is not proven in a good way at all because all of these weather events have different levels of severity. But I think I was expecting California to end up being the worst state for weather at the end of this video, no matter how I decided to measure that. So that was the video, and I'm going to erase my map. And don't worry, it didn't take that long to draw.